Michelle Obama saying that she doesn't want power, I really don't believe that. The Obamas seem to enjoy power. I think they've been controlling the Biden White House for the last 3 years. Obama term number 3. So I think that's what you're going to see, because I don't think Kamala Harris is very electable. I just don't think she's very likable. And at the same time, it has to be, someone that's a woman and a minority. Otherwise, it's going to create a problem in the party too.
All right, guys, got Jeremy Slate here. Just came from the RNC. How was it there, man?
It was pretty cool. I think the thing that was most exciting to me is the Republican Party's changed a lot. And I think it's become less of kind of like the hardcore conservative right, and it's become more of like a libertarian leaning party, which I think to me is cool. Like, I want low taxes, I want freedom, but I think we can get too much into the this is what our party means, where I think more or less we need to win elections here too. So I'm pretty excited about where things are headed. Met a lot of cool people. I met Crowder's team.
Nice.
I met just a lot of cool people. It was a great time.
Yeah, it looked like a blast. I'm going to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Now, did you grow up in Jersey? Because I know you're there now.
I grew up in Northwest Jersey. It's like the wrestling capital of the state, so everybody wrestles where I'm from. And where I live now is like maybe 40 minutes from where I grew up. And 2 dozen chickens, I got a pig, a whole bunch of dogs, live on a lake.
I love that.
5 acres. It's awesome, man.
Self-sustaining. Reminds me of Tucker Max.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not what Tucker Max has. He's got a lot more. He actually, he went to not like high school at Blair Academy.
Yeah.
Which is actually right next to
I didn't know
it's
that.
in Blairstown. It's right where I live.
I didn't know he grew up in Jersey.
Well, he didn't grow up in Jersey. He went to Blair Academy. Like, people from outside the state would come in.
Yeah, I ask about Jersey just because I grew up there too, and obviously it's super left, and you're going to RNC. So were you left growing up?
No, so your part of Jersey and my part of Jersey are very, very, very different. So it's like super red in my part of the state. I'm in like Sussex County on the border of Sussex and Warren. And what they did a few years ago, so we were represented for a bunch of years by E. Scott Garrett, but then they, and he was a Republican representative, they redistricted us about 10, maybe 15 years ago. And what they did is pull in the higher population density areas, and it really shifted a lot of the congressional representation. So right now we're represented by Josh Gottheimer. He is more left, but where I live, really, it's Trump country, man. It just happens to be that they've pulled in a lot of the major cities, and it kind of shifts the congressional representation.
Got it. So Jersey might go right eventually.
I have no aspersions on that, man. Like, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but we'll see.
We'll see, man.
We'll see.
I mean, they're saying Cali's. If Cali can go right, I feel like Jersey can.
I don't see California going right, man. Not with a Batman villain like Gavin Newsom in charge. I don't know. I don't see that happening.
You think he'll step in if Biden drops out?
So my pick, and I've talked to Roger Stone and a few different people about this, is I think it's going to be Michelle Obama.
Really?
And I've been saying this since May, so I can't go the other way now, because at least I got to stick with it if I'm wrong. Because you have to look at it this way, and I'll bring this back to the Roman Empire, which is one of the things I talk about a lot. So the first emperor, Augustus, he actually became emperor because he told people he didn't want the job. And he had just helped them get peace and everything else. And he's like, I'm going to step down. They're like, no, please rule us. And that's how they actually end up getting their first emperor. Michelle Obama saying that she doesn't want power, I really don't believe that. The Obamas seem to enjoy power. I think they've been controlling the Biden White House for the last 3 years. And I think really what you've been seeing is Obama term number 3. So I think that's what you're going to see, because I don't think Kamala Harris is very electable. I just don't think she's very likable. And at the same time, it has to be someone that's a woman and a minority. Otherwise, it's going to create a problem in the party too.
Yeah, there are theories that the Obama were running this administration recently.
I think so. I think he's a puppeteer behind the scenes.
Yeah, but aren't most presidents?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think that was the problem with Trump, and why they had all the political persecutions and everything else, is they couldn't really run him and they didn't really know what he was going to do.
Right.
And for the political system, that's a little bit scary. So I don't know that most presidents are, but I think that was the major problem with Trump and the political establishment. Right,
and Trump's been compared to Julius Caesar, but you pose that the American Caesar was already 100 years ago, right?
Yeah, so if you look at it, and I think you have to kind of like understand the whole lay of the land here. So when people think of the Roman Empire was 31 BC to 476 AD. So it's about a 503-year period. But the actual Roman era is 753 BC. It's founded as a kingdom. To 509 BC, it's a republic. And then 509 BC to 31 BC, it's a republic. Then you kind of the empire stage after that. Caesar is the last person in what's called the Republic era, right? So he's one of the final guys. He's assassinated in 44 BC. And often they try to make the comparison to Donald Trump, or they try to make the comparison to, kind of anybody usurping power you could think of. And you have to kind of understand that the era and time that Caesar lived in, he's one of the last characters in what's called the Roman Civil War. Their civil war isn't like we would have thought of civil wars. It goes from 133 to 31, and what it really is rich people fighting for power. It's all of the political class fighting each other. It's not like rich versus poor or anything like that. So what they're really doing is using Rome to fight for power. And you have kind of this 100-year downslide. The first character is this guy, my memory has suddenly escaped me. Gaius Marius, there we go. It's the first guy in the beginning there. And the main office in Rome is called a consul. And you would have 2 of them at a time because they didn't want one person to hold power, because traditionally Rome had 7 kings. So to have another king was a scary thing to them. So consuls would hold power for a year. They would hold it for a year, and they had to have 10 years in between consulships. That was how the law was. Marius held 7 consulships.
Wow.
He did not live to be 70 years old. So obviously the laws were getting broken there. There's a disagreement between Marius and another guy named Sulla, and Sulla in 83 actually ends up naming himself dictator. And during this time period, he starts this process called proscription, where they basically would put names on tablets, put them in the forum, and if your name was on the tablet, they'd kill you.
Really?
They'd have to bring your head.
And it was anonymous, or?
What do you mean was it anonymous?
Like they put the names, they're writing the names, or?
So what would happen is the first day it was 80 names. Second day it was 200 names. These were the enemies of Sulla.
Got it.
And what would happen is people would add the names of their enemies to this list, right? Because they're like, who's going to notice if there's 200 names if I put my person on there?
Right.
So you have people just being killed, and their head has to be brought to show that they're dead. And what would happen is the state would then own all their property, everything else, or sometimes maybe people could get their property. So things are getting really upheaved during this point in time. There's an 18-year-old on the proscriptions list named Julius Caesar, because Sulla wants Caesar to divorce his wife, which he ends up not doing. He's connected to the right people. They end up getting him off the list. And after the period of Sulla, you have Caesar as consul in 59 BC. And the consulship, they would call it typically the year of these 2 guys. And if I'm getting too far into it, Sean, feel free.
No, this is interesting. Okay. I didn't know Caesar had a near-death experience.
He did, yeah. He did, yeah. He wasn't part of the right, I guess, political faction, because there's these 2 political factions in Rome. There's the populares and the optimates. The optimates were the rich people. And Caesar, he's ostensibly rich, but he did things more for the popular people. He actually, before he even became political, lived in a housing tenement. So he had the right type of family, a patrician name, but he lived in more of a poor area early in his life. So he's often broke his entire life, and the fact that he's borrowing money is a big problem for him. So he's consul in 59, and the other guy he's consul with is this guy Marcus Biblius. The power behind Marcus Biblius is this guy named Cato the Younger. He's an enemy of Caesar. So his goal is to just block Caesar at every turn. So what ends up happening is his first action is to give land to troops, a very popular thing to do, right? He wants to give the troops that are retiring land so they can start farming. Biblius is opposed to this. So what Caesar actually does, something they wouldn't do, because typically the Senate would vote on these things, he brings the vote to the people. The people and Caesar agree on this thing. So what happens is the people actually chase Biblius into his home, and he doesn't leave the rest of the year. So the consulship would be called the year of those consuls. So it would be Caesar and Biblius. What it ends up historically being called is the consulship of Julius and Caesar. So he has ultimate power for a year. But now there's actually a private agreement behind the scenes between Rome's most famous general, Pompey the Great, Caesar, and Rome's richest man, Crassus, who Caesar owed a lot of money to. It's called the First Triumvirate. So for the year, these 3 guys are making all the political decisions. That year ends. Caesar then goes for 9 years in Gaul, kills about 1 million people, conquers a lot of land, and once again, he's a man of his era. That would have been acceptable. That would have been expected. He's on his way back with his army. He has about 10 legions. A legion it changes throughout the empire, but it's around 5,500 men.
Wow, and he had 10 of those.
So he had 10 of those. They're on their way back from Gaul, and he hears from a messenger that Cato the Younger wants him to report for crimes that he committed 10 years ago that weren't crimes when he committed them. This is where we say, well, that sounds very similar to a president that's currently in office. So here's the difference between Trump and Caesar. Number 1, Donald Trump has never led an army. So he's not as successful as a military man as Caesar. Number 2, Caesar gets to a river called the Rubicon, and he utters a statement which is famous to art history, saying the die is cast. Now, it's actually an incorrect translation. It comes from Greek tragedy. And the actual phrase he's looking for, we're in Vegas, so it makes a little bit more sense. Let the chips fall where they may, is closer to what it means. He's just, I'm taking a risk. It could work out for me, might not work out for me. And then he takes one of his 10 legions, crosses the river Rubicon, and heads for Rome. What ends up happening is his enemies, Cato the Younger, Pompey and him had a falling out at this point in time. They actually flee the city of Rome. So he marches into Rome unimpeded, and he becomes the guy basically in charge. And over the next 5 to 8 years, he actually follows Pompey and his army through Europe. The Egyptians will later kill Pompey, but that's kind of how things end up happening. They call Caesar's bluff, and he ends up bringing his way into Rome. Now, Donald Trump loses the election. Since I may not agree with it, he fought it for a bit, but he probably would have retired if things didn't go the way they did. Caesar never relinquished power, and I think that's a very important differentiation to make.
Damn. What made you
I apologize that was complex, but there's a lot to it.
This is fascinating. What made you want to dive so much into this kind of stuff?
So I had one of the coolest professors ever in undergrad, Dr. Sean Lake. We're actually working on a book together now comparing the Roman Republic and Empire to modern America. And I took every Greek civilization class that he could offer. I was fascinated by Alexander the Great. And if you see my office at home, I look like a crazy person. I have a bust of Alexander the Great. I have a statue of Athena. I have Greek swords. And I read this really weird, obscure article, and it was called Augustus at Actium. And after the Battle of Actium, which is the final battle of the Roman Civil War, he goes before the sarcophagus of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great died in 323, so he's been dead for about 300 years at this point in time. But he goes and prays before it. I'm like, that's really weird. So then what I ended up doing is researching, well, what propaganda tools did Augustus use to convince people he was God and then get people to worship the Roman emperor for almost 500 years? And that's what got me into the Roman Empire. I was so obsessed with Alexander the Great, it just kind of sucked me in.
Interesting. Yeah. And do you see a lot of similarities with that ancient civilization, or I don't know if they're ancient, but that civilization in modern times? You
mean Greece or Rome?
Just like Rome. Roman Empire.
So the thing I see the most, and number one, like we were just kind of talking about Trump and Caesar, I see that there's a couple different things happening. And I've been talking for the last year about what's called Rome's crisis of the 3rd century. And in the 3rd century, there's two things that are really killing the Roman Empire. Number one is inflation. By 284, they're at 15,000% inflation.
Damn.
And also immigration. So you have to kind of understand how we got here. So there's what's called the 5 good emperors. The last of those is a guy most people have heard of. They probably read his book, The Meditations, and that's Marcus Aurelius. So those 5 good emperors have a policy, the first of which is Nerva, followed by Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, Aurelius, and then Aurelius's brother. I can't remember his name off the top of the moment. But the two of those guys rule together, and then Aurelius has ultimate power. In 180, Aurelius breaks something that those 5 good emperors had done. What they would do is take the closest, most qualified person that they thought could rule Rome and do a good job and name that person emperor. This was different than everything that was done before that, and it's different than everything that's done after that. But it was really effective, and it creates the Pax Romana. Like, it creates this period of peace. So you have these guys ruling for an average of 20 years, which it's highly unusual. Augustus ruled for a long time, and there's several emperors that rule for a long time, but these guys aren't ruling for very long. They're either getting assassinated, they're either having some sort of a political feud and not lasting in office. So to rule for an average of 20 years is crazy. What Aurelius does is he doesn't name the next closest person qualified. He names his spoiled 13-year-old son Commodus to be the next emperor. Commodus will rule until 192 and be the first in what's called the year of 5 emperors. There's so much upheaval, they can't even get the right person in place. This starts a change, and it's what Edward Gibbon, who writes The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, says is kind of that downward slide period of Rome. Now, it falls in 476, but this is really a change in how the empire functions. We have what are called the barrack emperors, barracks meaning military barracks. And what would happen is an army would say, my general's emperor now. And they would take their flags, they would take anything they had purple and put it on the guy and say, okay, he's an emperor now. You had, in that time period, about 47 different guys in the 3rd century claimed to be emperor. So what would happen is the person with the biggest army could be emperor. So how do you get the biggest army? Well, number one, there'd been a plague during the time of Marcus Aurelius, so about 10% of the empire had passed away, so there weren't enough military men. So they start bringing in barbarian tribes out of the provinces to start serving. And they would, at the end of that time period, get citizenship and have a lot of different things available to them for serving in the Roman army. I'm condensing a lot of this stuff too there, so if there's any history people out there, please don't hate me on how much I'm condensing all this stuff. But what happens is immigration now happens because these people are bringing into the army. So you have more barbarian tribes are coming in. You have at the same time the Huns are going across Europe, which is forcing more barbarian tribes closer to Rome. In order to pay these guys, there's not enough money. So what do? They clip pieces off of coins. They add other money to coins. So that creates inflation. When we think of inflation, it's just ones and zeros in a computer, because our money isn't tied to anything. In the Roman Empire, it literally was adding other metals to these coins. So by 284, you're at 15,000% inflation.
Oh my gosh.
So the guy that becomes emperor in 284 is a guy named Diocletian. He does these famous reforms, splitting the Roman Empire in two, east and west. He also creates 4 emperors, 2 senior, 2 junior, does some monetary reforms. It does not last very long. You have Constantine after him, which also does some monetary reforms, but you really have a downward slide in the empire after this because just inflation has hurt the empire too much, and it kind of ceases to become a Roman Empire after a period of time because you have more and more barbarian tribes coming in.
Do you see that happening to the U.S. dollar eventually?
Eventually, and I guess here's my problem with this, Sean, is I've talked to a lot of libertarian gold bugs about this, and a lot of people we were taken off of a gold standard in the 70s by Nixon, right? Yeah. And that's kind of why they're able to do the things they're able to do with money. We are nowhere near 15,000% inflation, but it's moving really fast because they didn't have the financial tools they had. The Roman Empire was not trading off of derivatives for for financial investments. So we're moving that way really quickly. And I guess the problem is, if we're going to fix it, Ron Paul says, hey, you got to get back on a gold standard or something like that, or I don't know if it's a crypto in the future, whatever it might be. It's still going to be bumpy for a while until we get on that currency because we've been over our skis and spending for years.
Right.
So we spent money we don't have. So I think there is something we can solve about that. But if you look at usdebtclock.org, Congressman Thomas Massey wears the pin every day that shows it going up. It's out of control. I think within the next 10 years, they're going to say we're going to be up to 45 trillion in debt, which is it's more than our GDP. So at that point in time, what do you do?
So if debt is more than GDP, that's...
You can't service the debt. And the problem that you have now too, and the Ukraine war and other things have showed this, we've used the US dollar as a threat to other countries, right? We've placed these sanctions on Russia and it was supposed to hurt Russia, but it ended up not really hurting Russia. And what it's done is strengthened other currencies out there like BRICS.
Right.
Brazil, China, Russia, India, and South Africa, I think is the other one in that currency. And they're not really trading in any sort of a treasury yet, but if they get a bond market, we're going to be in real trouble because if oil futures and things like that move into BRICS, well, there's no need for the US dollar anymore. And that's why we're able to spend like we're able to spend.
Scary times, man.
Yeah.
I actually don't keep that many US dollars.
Really? What do you keep money in?
Crypto, real estate, honestly, gold, anything.
Well, you want to own things. Things are things if you have, that's why Bill Gates has recently put so much money in real estate, because if you own things, you're much safer.
He bought a lot of land, right?
A lot of farmland,
yeah. He's getting a lot of heat for that, though. The appeal stuff, is that him?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, okay. It's this thing they're putting on fruits and vegetables now.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, look into that. There's so many conspiracies with that guy alone.
Well, Bill Gates, yeah, he's kind of made himself with Event 201 and everything. Not many people are happy with Bill Gates.
It's a shame, though, because growing up, as a kid, you looked up to him.
Yeah,
Guinness World Record books.
You look at what he's done even with Rotary. He was one of the guys helping to do vaccinations and things in other countries. And now they're looking at that and saying, oh, maybe that wasn't so good. So, Bill Gates has gotten a lot of heat for himself.
Yeah.
And even today, as we're talking about this, Microsoft has the largest IT outage of all time right now. Is
crazy.
They're using CrowdStrike as a vendor, and they've had a massive outage.
I think there's something sinister with that one.
I think so. To me, because this is what I was talking to my friend that I was saying with when I was here to see you. Think about it. If we were going to get attacked by China, or if China was going to go after Taiwan, or something else is going to happen in the Ukraine and Russia war, the president looks super weak right now. What's going to happen? A cyber attack. That would be what would happen before something major. So could be totally wrong, but that would be what would happen before something major.
For it to be out this long, it just seems sinister to me.
Yeah, because I think, so I was supposed to be on a flight yesterday, and I had actually ended up booking a second flight, but my 10 p.m. flight was canceled at 3 yesterday.
Wow.
And I know we're talking at noon-ish today, and it's still going, and I don't know when it's getting better.
Dude, I had 3 guests canceled today.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of flights canceled. And that's just flights. My Wi-Fi is down at home.
Is it really?
Yeah, because I use the panoramic Wi-Fi, and that's on Microsoft.
Yeah, so my mother-in-law runs a chiropractic office, and my wife was telling me actually all the phones are out at their office right now too.
Holy crap.
It's interesting because it's not consistently across different services, but we have a lot of airplane stuff is down. We have a lot of banking stuff is down.
Right.
There's a lot of cell technology that's down. So once again, I don't know, where this goes, but to me, it kind of like makes me look at what's going on.
Dude, if it lasts weeks, it could get kind of dangerous.
I'm just hoping to be able to get home in a couple days, man.
For real. That's going to affect people's livelihoods at that point, because I'm already freaking out over a day because I use Wi-Fi, obviously, but we'll see what happens with that, man. You just went on Alex Jones, you said, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was a pretty cool experience. I was supposed to do the show with Alex, but he ended up not feeling that well that day, so I didn't get to meet him. The man's hands are like baseball mitts. He is a mountain of a man and probably one of the nicest human beings I've ever met.
Wow.
I just think right now, knowing about the Roman Empire is vital, and they had ended up reaching out off another show that I did, and I think to understand kind of where we are at the point in history, like the Roman Empire, they couldn't discuss the things this openly like we can now. So I think that's the thing that makes me hopeful kind of about where we are in history, that we can observe what's happening. We can see what's happening. We can still do something about it. Now, our politicians aren't the best of us, and I think that's the problem, right? Like the changes would have to be made by the people that are in power. And so I think really it gets back to getting involved in a local level, and I think that's really all we can do right now. So I was definitely grateful to have that experience, and I think we need to be talking about these things more.
I love it. And you believe the Roman Empire is important because history repeats itself?
I don't know that it repeats itself, right? Like I don't think it's like kind of like one of those maps at the mall where you are here. I think it's more that history rhymes, right? A lot of the same things happen, and I think based on that, it's if you see what they did wrong, hopefully we can react to it better, because our political system is based on the Roman Republic. And if you look at as well, this goes back to a question you asked me before, and somehow I got away from it and didn't actually end up finishing answering the question. I kind of explained Julius Caesar. I see the Julius Caesar in our country being more around like 1913. Because people say, okay, well, is America a republic or is it a democracy? Well, ostensibly on paper, it's a republic. It doesn't operate like a republic. It operates like a democracy. Not that I like that, but that's how things end up going. So I see symptoms of the republic fall, right? We see the political class fighting like they're still trying to have their own civil war.
Yeah.
And then I see a lot of the economic things happening, which is what killed the empire. But if you look at the republic fall in America, I put that around 1913. Woodrow Wilson, probably one of our worst presidents. As someone from New Jersey, I apologize that you guys have to have him. He's not originally from New Jersey, but he was the president of Princeton. But in that time period, it was what's called the Progressive Era. And the Progressive Era has a major effect on, even where we live now. So what happens in 1913 is the Income Tax Amendment passes. In December, right before the Christmas break, the Federal Reserve Act passes and then goes into effect in 1914. And then you also have the 17th Amendment, which passes. So the 17th Amendment makes it so state legislatures no longer name who their representation is. Now it's just a popular vote. So the problem that you have with that is the Senate and the House, they serve this exact same purpose now because they're voted on by the exact same group of people. And if you look at how our framers wanted the Constitution to work, they wanted states to be able to have representation against states and the people to also have representation in their government. That's why it worked, and that's how it functioned as a functional republic. So in my opinion, the republic ended a very long time ago. And if you want to look at somebody like, Woodrow Wilson being your Julius Caesar, and then maybe somebody like FDR being your Augustus, the person that starts the new thing, I just think things have changed dramatically, and it's been a long time since we've actually been a republic.
Interesting. Yeah, because country's only, 300 years? So, I mean, Roman Empire, you said
1976 was our bicentennial, so we're closing on like 250 years.
250, yeah. And you said the Roman Empire lasted 700-ish?
So it goes from 753 to BC to 476. So like the actual Roman era is very long, but the empire period is about 503 years. And I think the thing that we're seeing is technology has really sped up how we're going through things. I think it's just moving so fast because the Romans couldn't even dream about some of the things we do technologically.
Right. So hopefully we can outlast.
I would hope so, but the right reforms have to happen. And like I said, the best of us aren't in power. Our politicians all want to give themselves more power.
It seems like countries are catching up. Like you could debate China's past us already. I mean, it's close, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree on that. And I think that's the problem is we don't have any industry here anymore. We don't really innovate as much as we'd like to. And I think as our currency loses power, we're in trouble. And that's, once again, that's how an empire falls.
Not
that I like being an empire, but I feel like that's kind of where we're at.
If we're gonna live anywhere, might as well be an empire, right?
Yeah, that's it's once again, I don't really like that we're kind of in other people's business globally, but at the same time, it gives us the best quality of life.
Right, that's true. I didn't know currency was the fall of Rome.
So people will debate that, and they'll blame it on Christianity, they'll blame it on all sorts of other things, but I think if you have to look at it, you have kind of minor causes and you have major causes.
Right.
I think your major causes really are immigration and inflation. Because if you can fix your currency, you can fix a lot of things. But if your currency is ruined, as we're seeing now, right? Like as our currency goes downhill, we're ruining our country.
And the immigration's pretty bad lately too.
We don't even know how many people are here at this point, man. Like,
They're
and I think
thousands a day.
That's the problem. Is I have no problem with people coming here the right way. There's nothing wrong with that. Like there's a process and follow the process. But I think the problem that you have is just like in Rome, when people, a lot of people are coming here now and they're getting, social programs and money and things like that. And that's one of the big reasons they're coming here. Also for freedom, which I think is a good thing. But at the same time, they're coming into a system that they're not really bought into. They haven't served in the military. They haven't, voted in our elections. They haven't voted in our elections, paid taxes. Well, I hope they haven't voted in our elections, but they haven't paid taxes. So I think, and that's what you see in Rome is, as it becomes less of a Roman empire, more of a barbarian empire, it doesn't fall, it just kind of fades away. And in 476 is the often traditional fall of Rome in the West. In the East, it lasts until 1453. It's called the Byzantine Empire, but they would have called themselves Romans. When you look at it, there's the last kind of 100 years of emperors. Rome is sacked in 410 by a Visigoth named Alaric. And after that point in time, the Romans are literally just paying money to our barbarians not to attack them. Like, just please leave us alone.
Wow.
And what happens is these barbarian generals are just propping up the emperors for the last 100 years. And you have a lot of child emperors and a lot of weak emperors. The final emperor is this guy named Romulus Augustulus. He's a child emperor. And the king of the Visigoths at that point is this guy named Odoacer. And he just takes Romulus Augustulus. He says, we're going to have you retire. We're going to give you a pension. You can go live over there, but you're not in charge of anything there anymore. There is no Roman Empire. And what ends up happening is the Eastern Roman Emperor, a guy named Justinian, in the late 6th century, tries to basically reunite the Roman Empire. So when you hear about the Roman Empire falling, it's often because the East tries to bring it back into the West. It really had transitioned into being a barbarian empire. And there's a lot of building projects that happen early in kind of that barbarian era to preserve what Rome was, because they liked the idea of Rome. They didn't know how to build it because they hadn't built it, but they liked the idea of what was there. It's when Justinian tries to reunite the empire that it destroys what's left of it, and that's your real fall of Rome.
Right. Dude, this is fascinating. I'm surprised you can retain all this, and I wonder how accurate, because like history class in school was just BS.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So like, I wonder how much of this history has been either lost or mistranslated.
Well, I think that's part of the problem too, is like, going back to Julius Caesar, we know a lot about his time in Gaul because he actually wrote commentaries. And he wrote them in third person, by the way. So if you want to be really entertained, it's interesting. Caesar did this, and Caesar did that, and Caesar did that. It's quite interesting. But there's a lot of his writing from his time as dictator that doesn't survive. What does survive is a lot of the writings by a guy named Marcus Tullius Cicero. Cicero is the famous Roman writer. And he kind of goes back and forth where he's a friend of Caesar, and he's not a friend of Caesar, and he's a friend of Caesar. And eventually, he ends up kind of in the camp of people that don't like Caesar. His writings are the ones that survive.
Got it.
So a lot of what we believe about Julius Caesar is based on others that have written about him. And that's the same problem with the fall of the Rome in the West. We have a lot of writing from Justinian scribes. We don't have a lot of writing from Western scribes because at that point in time, like, it had become more barbarian. There's a lot less literacy. So you just don't have the type of records you would have coming from the East. And I think, once again, it comes back to what you were talking about. Like, if we don't have the knowledge firsthand, what are we going to do? We just have somebody else's opinion.
Yeah, because when they teach history in the U.S., it's just all our opinion.
Well, and also, I think the problem is, too, they don't teach this at all.
They don't teach this at all, yeah.
This has been the most surprising thing to me is when I talk about the Roman Empire or, Greek civilization or things like that, nobody knows about it. And Sean, I will admit I've probably made 10 mistakes in this interview at some point in time. I can't do them off the top of head now. I'm not a PhD. I'm not the smartest person in every room. But I think I know enough about it to be able to make it make sense to regular people. And I think we need to learn more about these things because we're not learning in school. And that's been the biggest surprise to me, that people aren't learning these things in school.
Right. And there's that viral meme about men thinking about the Roman Empire, right? You probably blew up during that time.
Well, that's actually how. So what ended up happening is my wife saw that on, I'm not really on TikTok.
Yeah.
I have somebody else that like manages an account for me. But my wife's like, hey, there's this thing on TikTok about men thinking about the Roman Empire. Like, you're actually pretty qualified to talk about that. You should do it. She's like, honey, you're relevant now. I'm like, I'm relevant. Thank you. So yeah, it's been interesting because for me, it is something I have thought about all the time, right? So to be able to talk about it more and have these conversations has been pretty cool.
Yeah, there must be something there, right?
I think
Past
so.
lives or something for all these guys to be thinking about it.
I'm a big believer we don't live more than once. So.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So you have that take where it's just one and done.
No, I said I don't think we live more than once.
Oh, you don't think?
I think we do live more than once.
Got it.
Sorry about that.
Got it. Okay.
So I think a lot of times, you get kind of these bad people that keep coming back sometimes, but you never know.
Yeah, no, I could see it. I think there's generational trauma and everything, so I believe in that for sure. You also went on Tim Pool.
Yeah.
Did you talk about the Roman Empire on that?
The Roman Empire, man, which was a cool experience. Because once again, nobody's talking about the 3rd century, and I think that's the bigger problem. Everybody's talking about the fall of a republic, and Donald Trump's bringing down a republic, and I think the thing that's bigger is how a civilization falls. And a civilization falls when we lose economics, when we lose our currency. So I've been talking about the crisis of the 3rd century, man, for the last 6 months, and I feel like we're starting to finally break through, and I think it's a thing we really need to take a look at.
Yeah, I love it because people think about just losing in war, but they don't think about losing on these fronts ever.
Yeah, if you overextend yourself, if you start paying for a military-industrial complex too much and your money is weak, you're in a lot of trouble.
And we have the biggest military, right? Funding-wise.
Yeah, and I've heard some interesting viewpoints on this too. And if you think about it, like we have military bases in the UK, we have military bases in so many different countries, but they don't have military bases here. It's almost like an occupation when you think of it. And I think it's something to really consider of like, we're spread so much around the world and you have to fund all that stuff. And I don't think, number one, I don't think we should be funding that stuff, but I think the problem is we're just debasing the currency more.
So you don't want to fund any overseas bases?
I want America first, man. I want to handle the borders. I want to handle the economics. I want to, raise the tariffs so we can start having some production here, because here's the problem, right? If we do handle our currency, well, what's going to happen? Nothing's produced here, right? Nothing's produced here. So if you make it more expensive to produce things outside of America, well, companies have no choice but to bring it back to America. And I think we have to have industry here or we can't fix our currency because we're based fully on an information economy then.
And I just found out we do make weapons, and that's like our biggest.
Yeah.
Right?
It's about it, yeah, and we just sell them all over the globe.
Yeah, and it's crazy because when Trump was in office, he was anti-war, but the economy was good, so.
The economy was good because he had, and he did a lot with the tax structure too. Like one of the things he had done which changed is, as a business owner, you didn't pay income tax in your first $30,000 in income, which is pretty cool. There was also higher tariffs on China and other countries like that. A lot of those things have been rolled back. So I think we really have to get to making things here, raising tariffs, lowering taxes. I think that's really how you start to fix things.
Yeah.
But it's not going to get any better unless we handle our currency.
Yeah, I don't know any cars made here. I just found out the Tesla chip is made in China. Isn't that crazy?
It's interesting too, because I've heard some interesting things about Elon Musk in China as well. I don't know how true they are. I guess that's the problem. I interviewed Batya Ungar-Sargon, who's the deputy opinion editor for Newsweek a couple years ago, and she had talked about, if you look at Chinese social media, Elon Musk has, and once again, I haven't seen these things firsthand, this is her opinion on it. Elon Musk, how he's kind of America, America, America here. In China, he's China, China, China. So
really?
It's like, it seems like he's somebody that economically is going to do what's best for him. And I guess that's how you get to be a billionaire.
Capitalist, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I was very intrigued. He tweeted out after Trump's assassination attempt, he's been almost assassinated twice in the past 18 months.
Wow. Well, he also said he's given $45 million a month for the next, through the election to the Trump super PAC.
And he was left his whole life, Democrat.
Well, I think the problem, Sean, is like the left isn't the left anymore, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't consider myself to be like hardcore conservative, but I feel like as the left has gone so far left, it's left everybody behind. If that makes sense. And you have kind of the how many lefts were in that statement? I think if you look at the political spectrum, it's kind of like left and everything is far right now.
Right.
I think that's the real problem we have. The
I
political
agree.
spectrum is out of control.
Yeah, because when I grew up left, it just seemed normal. It didn't seem this crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's interesting is a lot of my friends that I would consider to be, like left or somehow on my side of the fence, but their views haven't changed. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the interesting part about it. Is like, I look at somebody like Tulsi Gabbard. I disagree with her on a lot of things like Second Amendment and her views on taxes and things like that. But I think the thing you have to look at is we agree we like this place and we want to preserve it.
Right.
Where I think if you look at the modern left, they say, let's burn it down and let's start something new. that's a very different viewpoint on what we're doing in this country, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to Tulsi. She's coming on next week.
Is she? That's awesome. You're lucky.
Yeah,
I like her a lot.
Yeah. I'll text you for some questions to ask her because I'm sure you're good at that. So Praetorian Guard. So this whole Trump thing, you said there was a link there with the Secret Service and Praetorian Guard.
So the Praetorian Guard, they're instituted by Augustus, and they're the group that's responsible for protecting the emperor. They're basically like his personal bodyguard. It goes from Augustus until Constantine in the early 300s, and he actually ends up disbanding them because the major problem that you have is they're responsible for protecting the emperor, but oftentimes, whether it's through negligence or actual malice, emperors are dying under their watch. The first of which, actually killed by the Praetorian Guard, is Caligula. He is kind of out of control. His actual name is Gaius, but Caligula ends up being the name they give him because as a kid, his father Germanicus was a military commander. And they used to, this is kind of weird, but they used to dress him up in this like little kid's military uniform, and he used to have these small boots. Caligula in Latin translates to little boots.
Got it.
So, or bootykins, however you want to go with that. So the actual name Caligula, that's where it comes from. But he's so out of control as an emperor that the Praetorian Guard actually ends up knifing him to death.
Damn.
And his wife and his child. And they name his uncle, Claudius, who's the next closest related to the family, to be the next emperor. And you have various points of this throughout history. You have Caracalla, who's emperor in like the 210s. He actually, in 212, takes 30 million people that are in the Roman provinces and gives them citizenship overnight.
Wow, 30 million?
30 million. So but he's actually killed by the Praetorian Guard. He gets off his horse while he's on campaign to take a piss, and they end up knifing him to death. Damn. Same thing happens with Aurelian in the 270s. He's one of the guys that actually reunites the East and West for a period of time because the Roman Empire had a tendency to break in the middle because it just got so big. So he reunites the empire, but once again, gets off his horse, take a piss, gets killed by the Praetorian Guard. Praetorian Guard also kills Commodus. They try to kill him twice. They finally succeed in the second time. But out of I think there's 77 emperors in the Roman Empire. There's all sorts of other claimants, so like that number could be different depending on what you're looking at. 13 of those are actually killed by the Praetorian Guard.
Wow.
And they're the people actually charged with protecting the emperor. So now if you want to look at what's happened with Trump in the last week or so, once again, I don't know when you're publishing this episode, but like in the last week or so when we're talking, you look at it and you say, okay, maybe they didn't do it, but at the same time, how did that many things go wrong, man?
Right.
How does some guy with a ladder get to the single roof that's uncovered, apparently go up it twice at two different points in the day, crawl up it with a rifle, while the SWAT team is actually inside the building underneath him? Like how does that happen? Except if there's either some sort of involvement or they let it happen. Like that's my major concern is like, did they let it happen? Because at the same time, if you don't stop something, maybe just because you didn't do it, but if you don't stop something, that also allows it to happen. They lost this guy for like a half an hour, and then they find him again, and he managed to get back on that roof, and then they only find him because people are yelling about it. So to me, that just raises a lot of concerns where, is the Secret Service actually protecting Trump? Or, once again, maybe they didn't do it, but are they going to leave the window open so maybe something happens because they'd like somebody else to be in power?
So I wonder who was influencing those guards to make those decisions.
So what ends up happening for a lot of them is they're the most elite unit of the Roman soldiers, the Roman legions. And what ends up happening is initially they had the idea of they want to protect and save the empire or the republic at that point in time. Later it becomes, well, who's going to give me the most money and who do I want in charge? And that's how corruption goes. Corruption goes by who is going to give me the most.
Got it. So they got bribed, a lot of them.
They get bribed. And they want the right guy in charge who's going to give them more, right? Like who's going to be better to me as a military commander.
And I could see that happening modern day too.
Yeah. Because the word emperor doesn't come, like the original name of what the emperor was called, because once again, Augustus is brilliant, is princeps, first citizen. It's where we get our word prince from. Because they didn't want to use the word king, they didn't want to use anything else. The actual guy who's in charge of the military is the imperator. So that's where our word emperor comes from. So the emperor is actually tied very closely to the military. And that is why, the Praetorian Guard is tied in so tight. And also later on, when generals are declared emperor by their troops, you have, that whole situation happening.
Yeah, because 20% pretty much murder rate for the guards to kill their emperor.
I didn't do the math on that. That's pretty significant.
13 out of 77. I mean, that's about 20%, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. And there's a lot of them if you want to look at the list of it and how they die. If you want to look back at Commodus once again, they try to kill him twice because he wanted to be a gladiator more than he wanted to be The movie's totally wrong, by the way. But
that's what the movie was off of?
He's the Joaquin Phoenix character, supposed to be Commodus.
Got it.
But he would often dress up as Alexander the Great or as Hercules, and he would try to fight in the arena, but he would often do it from a platform because nobody can hurt you from up there, so you can shoot from above him and all those things. And he just didn't do a great job in actually running the empire. So what ends up happening is the Praetorian Guard conspire with his wife, which is, consider that you're married to her and apparently she doesn't like you. They conspire to poison him. So what they end up doing is they get him so drunk that he actually throws up the poison.
Wow.
So the first attempt doesn't work. The second one is they actually hire a wrestler to strangle him to death. And that ends up being how Commodus dies. So he gets strangled to death by a wrestler.
Damn.
But from the bidding of the Praetorian Guard.
I didn't know wrestling was around back then.
And the Praetorian prefect, who's the guy in charge of the Praetorian Guard, is actually named the next emperor after that.
Who's your personal favorite emperor?
Personal favorite emperor?
Out of the 77.
I like Hadrian a lot.
I haven't heard that one.
So Hadrian, he's one of the 5 good emperors. As I've mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Greek culture and because there's a lot of learning. And once again, I'm obsessed with Alexander the Great. So the Hellenization of Rome actually happens during his time as the Roman emperor. So that's a big part of it. He also, which is sad, but it's because it's also part of the downfall of Rome, but he also is the one that stops the conquests of basically going further. He builds a lot of the walls in Britain and places like that. And the empire is right before him under Trajan in 117. It's at its largest, but it's at its most prosperous under Hadrian. So he was, in my opinion, one of the best rulers.
Nice. What about U.S. presidents?
U.S. presidents.
That's a tougher one, I feel like.
It's a tough one because, if you it's tough because a lot of them kind of take us further away from what I want things to be. I read a really great book by David McCullough called Washington, about George Washington. And, the guy didn't want the job, but he was excellent at it. And to me, I think he's kind of the best in the kind of what you could be as a president. And no one's really ever lived up to that since.
Wow, the first president.
First president. And everybody's been trying to live up to that since. And I don't think anybody's really done that great of a job.
Dang.
I'm a big fan of a lot of what Trump has done, but once again, he's been undercut where he couldn't really get the job done in some ways too by, the intelligence agencies, by the FBI, by, he's the you're fired guy, but he's made a lot of bad staffing picks in the first time around. So if he wins again, I hope those things would be better and maybe he's got a second shot at it.
Yeah, maybe he can overtake George Washington.
Yeah, I don't know about that. He would love to hear that though.
Yeah,
I don't know about that though.
Where do you rank RFK? You got him high up there?
Robert F. Kennedy?
Or no, not or JFK.
JFK.
Sorry.
So I think JFK had the idea to do a lot of good things, but the problem is, he's killed 3 years in, right? And he doesn't get to end up going for re-election. One of the things he wanted to do is he wanted to defund the CIA.
Yeah.
He wanted to get us back on I think it was a silver currency, or he wanted to at least get us back on hard currency. So I think he had a lot of good ideas, but how quickly he was killed ended a lot of those off. I think that's the issue.
I saw your most viewed podcast was about trying to figure out who killed him.
Yeah, it was Roger Stone.
Yeah. Did you get convinced in any particular way?
I think Lyndon Baines Johnson is kind of the biggest guy you could see as that, and that's what Roger Stone makes the case for.
Wow.
Because if you look at it, it's really a collaboration of groups that caused the JFK assassination. Once again, I'm not the world's biggest JFK expert. Roger knows a lot more than I do, but this is from what he's talked about. The FBI didn't like him. You have the mafia didn't like him because he had turned to the mafia. They likely helped him get elected. And you have also the communists didn't like him too. And so the best person to be there is LBJ because he kind of unites all these groups, right? And he wanted to be a powerful guy. And if you read about LBJ, he's kind of a interestingly weird dude. Like he used to, he wanted to degrade reporters, so he'd make them interview him while he was taking a crap.
What?
Yeah, he was notorious for having reporters interview him while he was on the toilet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and he was a philanderer too. He was going around on his wife Lady Bird a lot.
Wow.
So he's a very corrupt dude, and the issue was the Senate was about to bring him up on corruption charges and do an investigation. So what do? You get rid of the president, and you get rid of anything else that's going to cause that problem.
Pardon yourself.
So I think it's a convenience thing. I don't think he was planning the whole thing, but I think these three groups united with him as the right guy make it all work. So do I think he was out there giving orders? No, but I think he has the most to gain from it.
I wonder if Trump if he gets elected, will release those documents ever.
I hope so. I really hope so, because they've held back the last percentage of what's in there, and I think we really need to know about it, right? I think we need to know, what is in my opinion, our intelligence agencies doing. I think that's the bigger problem.
Absolutely. And the 9/11 documents. I really want to see those.
They haven't released all those?
I think they released some, right? But not all of them.
Well, they released some stuff recently. I didn't know they were still holding more back related to, apparently they were casing some Saudis a few months before 9/11 actually happened.
Yeah.
There was also a lot of, like, the Defense Department lost, was it $2 trillion or $2 billion? I can't remember the exact.
Something crazy, yeah.
Some big amount, like on September 10th, they couldn't account for it. So there's a lot of things around it that you're just like, we need to know more information.
Did you see the passport thing recently too?
What's that?
So the passports they found of the terrorists, they found the guys were actually alive recently in another country. Yeah, you didn't see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah, so they're alive.
Apparently I got to watch whatever news you're watching, man.
Twitter's,
well, that's where I spend most of my time, so I don't know how I'm missing this.
Yeah, I'll send you it. Twitter, I feel like, is the most authentic right now.
Yeah, I don't watch any news channels. I'm often like searching on there looking for, I have kind of my sources that I like a lot.
Yeah.
I like Kyle Becker is great. I'm watching what Jack Posobiec says a lot. Breitbart does some good stuff on there. So I'm often following, those accounts that I like a lot to see what they're talking about.
Yeah, Twitter and Rumble for me. Like when the assassination happened, I was on a Twitter live with Mario Nafal. He had a bunch of good guys on there. And that felt just so more authentic than watching the news.
I was in the middle of the woods, so like, I had no cell service. I was camping with my family.
Wow, so you came home to that?
Yeah, well, no, I could get like text messages, but I couldn't get like anything else. So I got like the text from my craziest friend first, where I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, he thinks there's some sort of a plan and Trump's doing blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then I started getting texts from more people, and I'm like, okay, something's actually happening here. Like I initially didn't believe it because of where it came from.
Yeah, crazy times, man. You also interviewed a White House chef.
I did, yeah.
Was that Obama's chef?
So he was actually the chef for Obama, George W. Bush, and then also for part of Trump's term.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that the one that ended up getting killed, or?
No, that was that was like a sous chef, like an assistant. Got it. I don't even know if he worked with this guy.
That was a weird situation.
Yeah. You don't want to go apparently wakeboarding with the Clintons, the Obamas, man. You may not come back from it.
Dude, that's like some mafia stuff.
Yeah. You want to Google the Clinton body count. You're going to find some interesting stuff of people in the Clinton and Obama
over 100,
area.
right?
Is that what it's at?
It's big. Not directly, but like indirectly, yeah.
Yeah. That's why the joke is every time somebody dies, they put up a meme of Hillary Clinton with like a mustache or something like that.
Dude, it's crazy. Her and Soros.
Well, Soros isn't really killing people, but he's putting money behind kind of the right people. District attorneys has been his big thing recently because he realizes if he can subvert the law, he can change a lot of things.
But did you see the DJT short recently?
I did, and that came out of a company out of Austin, as far as I know.
Soros.
Do we know who's trading it?
Soros is a backer.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a few other big ones.
So which one, George or Alex?
George.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the odds?
I'm surprised that demon's still alive, man. He's almost 100.
He's still fighting, man. God damn, he must be taking something.
Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracies on him. I mean,
well, he's an interesting guy because I often compare him a lot to a guy in the Roman Empire or the Roman Republic called Marcus Crassus. Marcus Crassus was the richest man in Rome, and what he would do is he had gotten it initially by starting a firefighting company, but there was often thoughts that he was the one starting the fires he was fighting. But he was the richest one in Rome, and he was backing a lot of these different people, and he was actually the money behind Caesar. So it's, the more times change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you believe a reformer like Diocletian could emerge this year or next year?
I've often hoped that Trump could, and there's good things about Diocletian and bad things about Diocletian. Like the good things are monetary reforms. He tries to take and split the empire into 4, but kind of still under one emperor. And it's similar to what our 10th Amendment does, right? We've gotten too federal. We don't really operate on states' rights anymore. And we really need to get back to that because states are supposed to be more powerful than the federal government, but that's not the case.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, it's the way we originally, like a confederation. Then after that, we became more of a federalist system. But the states are supposed to have more power, but they've been giving all of their power to the federal government.
100%.
That's what you've been seeing. Like the Department of Education isn't constitutional. Like a lot of these things shouldn't actually be things if we actually went by our Constitution and what it means. But we've given so much power to, sorry, I keep kicking you.
No, you're good.
We've given too much power into the federal government. I think that's the real problem. So like I've hoped that Trump could be somebody like that. But the things that have to happen is we have to get back on hard currency. We have to get back on producing more things here, which is trade tariffs. And then we have to stop funding foreign wars. I think that's the biggest problem is we're spending. If you take a look, if you pulled up like the amount of aid that we spend to other countries, like that is why the U.S. dollar is so dominant because we give our dollar to so many different countries. We give money to Pakistan. We give money to Afghanistan. We give money to North Korea or South Korea, not North Korea, but we're giving money all over. We still have troops in South Korea, so it's like we are spread all over the planet. And I think unless we start to solve our situation at home, which includes solving education, those are the things I would hope Donald Trump would do in a second term. But once again, he has to pick the right people. He picked the swamp last time.
Yeah. He's also going after big pharma, which I like.
I do too. I think pharma is a huge problem, right? Pharma is a huge, huge problem.
Massive problem. I mean, that and education. Those two are probably the biggest affecting our kids, I'd say, right now.
Well, yeah, because education, it's become Marxified. I think that's the biggest problem. There's this guy, well, he's dead now, but he was a Brazilian philosopher named Paulo Freire. Mm-hmm. And James Lindsay talks a lot about this. So if you want to know about this, check out James Lindsay. He's Conceptual James on X. But what this philosopher did is his philosophy came to America in the 80s through colleges of education. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of your wokeism comes from. They were doing critical consciousness is how they talk about different subjects. And it's happened how we look at history, and it's happened how we look at math, and it's happened how we look at all these different things, is we have critical consciousness on how we look at things rather than learning how to actually do them. So Freire's education has ruined our colleges of education, which then comes down to who's being our teachers.
Right.
So we have to get those things out of our schools if we're actually going to have kids be competitive again. I think that's the biggest problem is we're more interested in kind of socially how we look and feel about things rather than just kind of solving our situation.
Absolutely. So how do you think the schools can fix that issue?
So schools need to go back to the states. The Department of Education isn't constitutional.
Get rid of the Department of Education.
Doesn't need to exist. It spends a lot of money. Most of it is in student loans anyway. If we get rid of that and have states start putting their own curriculum together, I think that's the way it needs to be.
So private schools.
Yeah, because then the state of Florida could do what they want, and the state of Nebraska could do what they want.
Right.
And I think then you're actually back on a system where people are voting for what they want rather than a governing body do that. Are you familiar with, there was a Supreme Court case that went through about 3 weeks ago, Chevron Deference?
No, I haven't heard of that.
So Chevron's an oil company, and I think this is about 35 years ago at this point in time. This is how a lot of these agencies started popping up, where typically Congress would have to vote for things if you want regulations. But in Chevron Deference about 35 years ago, that's where the EPA is allowed to regulate things. That's where the Department of Energy is able to regulate things. It was given this power by this Supreme Court decision. Well, about 3 weeks ago, that was overturned. So what would mean, once again, there's going to be so many court cases on this of, trying to reverse things that have already happened. The Congress is going to have to legislate again. You're not going to have these smaller departments that are giving orders, like the Department of Education. So I think, to me,
so that's good.
If people need to research Chevron Deference and what it means for kind of where we're at. Once again, I'm not the world's biggest legal expert, but it's a kind of a monumental case for handling a lot of these people that you don't vote for that are deciding what you get to do with your life.
Dude, that's exciting because I remember school and it was just, I hated it. And I thought I hated learning because of it. But then when I graduated and started learning about I cared about, it was awesome. Similar how you were in college probably, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's the biggest thing, man, is we want people to be educated to pass a test. And I think it needs to be, you need to be educated for two different reasons. Number one, how is this applicable in my life? And how useful is this to me? And if it doesn't make economic sense or it's not useful, right? Doesn't exactly make economic sense to get a degree in the Roman Empire, but it's useful, right? Because it's useful in a lot of ways that I'm able to look at things differently. So I think really that's how we need to look at our knowledge. And not everybody needs to go to college, but I think we've been sending everybody to college.
Yep.
And the problem is the student loan bubble is the next one's going to pop. That's the next thing that's going to go.
You think so?
That's a lot of the financial guys I've been talking to are saying that's the next one because you have a lot of people that are years behind on these loans or, they're in default and there's nobody to pay it. So you have the White House is saying we can forgive it. The Supreme Court was saying, well, no, you can't. And the White House is saying, I don't care. We're going to do it anyway. So it's a big issue right now because I believe there's more student loan debt than unsecured credit card debt. And that's a huge problem.
Huge. Yeah, my girl went to Seton Hall. I know you went there too.
Yeah.
Isn't that one like $70K a year?
So I was a commuter. So I think it was like 30 for me. And
which
then
is still crazy.
I had scholarships for undergrad, so I don't know how much I actually ended up paying. Most of my loans were for grad school.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Yes. I think when she went, which was 5 years ago, it was $70K a year.
That's insane. So I graduated 2012 from grad school, so 2009 from undergrad. And I don't think I had broken 30,000 yet.
Wow.
It's 70.
What?
But did she live there?
Yeah, that's including everything.
Okay, so I was just commuting, man.
Okay.
So
so I think if you lived there, it'd probably be 40-ish.
Okay, but that's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's nuts, dude. Holy crap. I mean, Rutgers is going up every year. I remember when my brothers went, it was like 15, 20. When I went, it was like 25. And I was in-state.
Yeah.
So outstate, it might be like 40. I don't know.
And it's insane, too, because you look at it and, a better system would be taking a look at, okay, if you're going to do that, maybe instead of giving somebody the money up front, you have them put some money up front because they have to have some skin in the game. And then maybe they take a percentage of your income 5 years out of school, right? So then at least you have to be able to do something when you graduate.
Agreed.
I think that's the bigger
I would love
issue.
that setup.
Right? Like, because you can't do nothing up front because then there's no skin in the game and people have a reason to just drop out and do whatever. But I think if you had that, it would be good. But also, like, we need more trade schools. I think that's the biggest problem is right now we have a shortage in trades.
Yeah.
I don't know if you follow Roger Wakefield.
I don't.
He's the biggest plumber on YouTube.
Really?
And he's doing a lot for trades right now. And you know, you can make great money 3 years out of school in the trades. Like you can make $60,000, $70,000 doing that, but people don't want to do them because they're dirty jobs.
Yeah, but shout out to plumbers, man. I just paid mine a lot.
I'll tell you what, man. Lack of plumbing is what caused the Black Plague. So if you want to, it's important for sanitation. It really is.
Wow.
And it's good money for people that are competent at it.
Damn, I didn't know that's what the Black Plague started from. Lack of
sanitation.
Plumbing? Holy crap.
Lack of good sanitation.
I don't think a disease like that could happen again, right?
Oh, could.
In the U.S.?
Could. We had a pandemic, so I don't see why we couldn't have other things.
I
we could do a whole other podcast on that. That might not be fit for YouTube.
Yeah, I don't want to get banned on that one. I already got 2 strikes talking about that.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
we'll
stay away from that.
I came off one last week.
I got a strike after I interviewed a former State Department official about who exactly rules the world. And we went into this whole thing about a number of different groups that I won't name here. And we got a pretty solid strike, and now we got a shadow ban on YouTube, which is fun.
I'm a little nervous for my interview with Nick Fuentes because I know it's...
You're doing that?
I know it's important.
Did you already do it? Or
No, but he said he wants to come on.
Okay.
But I think I might not post it on YouTube.
I wouldn't have.
Just to be safe.
Are you guys on Rumble or no?
We're on Rumble, so I think I'll post it there and Twitter. I don't know if Elon will allow that, but...
I've interviewed like Peter McCullough and a lot of guys like that around like an event that we all experienced 4 years ago that I'll leave unnamed.
Yeah.
And I left those all on Rumble because I don't feel safe putting them on YouTube.
That's what I mean. I don't want to get the whole channel deleted.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, you have to put it up there and you have to fight the cancel culture. And it's like at the same time, use it for what it's worth. You know, use it to help new people find your content and then just realize what you can use where. And I think you can't win a culture war if you don't have a way to talk.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm willing to have on just about anyone, and a lot of people disagree with that, but I think it's important to at least hear what they have to say.
You just know where you publish it, and I think you're safer.
Yeah. Like, I would have Alex Jones on, and that's a controversial one.
Just can't put it on YouTube.
Can't put it on YouTube. Just Twitter and Rumble.
So we reposted my, because he posts everything on band.video. We put it up on YouTube, and literally, he's not even in the interview, but it's his show, so I pulled it down.
Damn. That's crazy. Didn't they raid? He said the FBI was going to raid him like a couple weeks ago.
So what ended up happening with that whole situation is... they have like basically the court put somebody in charge of his office because it's how it works because they want to make sure the settlement money actually comes in.
Yeah, but he can't even settle for that.
Not for the amount. They want $1.5 billion or whatever it is, and I think they said he has like $10 million in assets. So there was some sort of disagreement between him and this person, so they were going to basically send people in to seize it. They ended up not doing that, and for the moment, they had a court case on June 14th. And for the moment, InfoWars is still open and operating, and they said they're not going to seize all of his assets. So I guess we'll see where this goes.
That sucks, man.
Yeah,
like his whole livelihood.
Yeah, and it's he's been really right sometimes, and he's been really wrong sometimes. But I think the problem is we can't go after people for their speech because we have to be able to talk about these things. You're going to make some mistakes sometimes, and I think that's what you have to. He was willing to apologize for those mistakes after they happen, but mistakes are going to happen when you're trying to be first to a story.
Yeah, I would have understood the settlement if it was a lesser dollar amount.
Yeah.
But 1.5 billion was just...
It's basically let's unperson him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you can't come back from that.
Yeah, that's absurd. Those families will never make anything close to that.
Correct.
Like, how did they even come up with that number?
I don't know, to be honest. I didn't follow the case close enough.
Nuts, man. Shout out to Alex. Hopefully he gets through that, man. I think what he's doing is super important.
Yeah, I agree.
But he's saying this Trump thing they're gonna try to kill him again, and that worries me.
Well, so the last thing I'd heard from him is he thinks they're gonna use this as a reason to have somebody go after Biden and then blame it on a Trump supporter. I watched something on Saturday that he had put out about it.
Okay, so maybe he's changed his opinion. When I heard him right after it happened, he said they might poison him or try to kill him again. I
don't know. The security at the RNC was the highest I've ever seen.
Oh, I saw videos.
It was insane.
You probably got patted down.
Patted down? I got patted down twice. They took away my lighter, man. I just had cigars, but they took away my lighter. I'm like, what am I going to do with my lighter? But yeah, it was pretty extreme. So in the perimeter around it, they had, you ever seen those barriers that like go up and down and they like search your car?
Yeah.
They were getting everybody out of their car, Uber drivers, everybody, checking everything, under the hood, backseat,
Holy
bags.
crap.
Every vehicle that came in. So I had a couple really angry drivers because I had asked, for a ride and they weren't very happy with me afterwards. So I hope I didn't get any bad ratings. So that was kind of the first area getting in there. That once you're in there, they had Secret Service, Homeland Security, the Army.
Jeez.
Here's a weird one: park rangers with their little park ranger hat on. Yeah, they also had each state sent either people from a major city, or they sent there was 25 New Jersey State Police there that I saw.
Holy crap!
So there was, I think 4,500 law enforcement was the number I was given.
Damn.
So they were in packs, man. So I don't think anything was happening there.
Yeah, that's intense. Holy crap. Well, Jeremy, it's been fun. Where can people find you and what you got coming up, man?
Yeah, so I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate on X, and they can find me either at jeremyryanslate.com, or if they're interested in what we do for business, I run a PR agency that focuses just on podcasts. It's over at commandyourbrand.com.
Cool. We'll link below. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching, guys, as always. See you tomorrow.